Welcome to the Iowa Corn 300 on NBCSN. The weather absolutely gorgeous. You would not have thought so this morning at about 10 o'clock. Those showers are gone. Green flag racing just around the corner. It should be a good one. You can feel the excitement building here, and the drivers are in and ready to go. And there's just one more thing to do. So let's go trackside for the words to send us on our way.
It's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Please welcome President of Iowa Corn Promotion Board, Mark Heckman, to give the command.
Drivers, start your corn-based E85 ethanol-powered engines.
We've detailed many of the stories, including those of the championship contenders, but still many others to keep an eye on, including Charlie Kimball, the highest qualifying Ganassi. He starts fifth. It's all about finding the setup. Charlie told me a few moments ago, I think we might have it. If we do, we can stay at the front and challenge for the win. Katie?
Ed Carpenter has yet to finish a race on an oval this season, but remember back to Iowa last year where he had a hard-fought battle with the leaders. This year, he's been running in the top 10 all weekend, including a 7th-place qualifying effort, and the 20 team is confident the tide is going to turn in their favor. Jan?
And Katie, Michaela Lotion is the highest qualified Honda runner today, starting at 9th. But check out these antics that went on in late practice yesterday. He burns out and he leaves pit road, but look what happened last night. He gets in front of his teammate, James Hinchcliffe, and as he comes up here, whoa, that's taking the air off the front of the car. And I can tell you, Brian, if that happens during this race today, I think you're going to see some paybacks later on.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, John. That was one close moment yesterday in practice, and you got to be careful. Leading the field right now, none other than Gilles DeFerrin, the fastest driver ever to turn a lap in an IndyCar at over 241 miles an hour. He leads the field today, and right behind him, literally, is Charles Dodot, winner of the fastest seat in sports, courtesy of Honda. Charles, can you hear me up in the booth?
Yes, sir, I can.
How do you feel knowing that the guy in front of you is the fastest guy ever in an IndyCar?
This is fantastic. It's a dream of a lifetime.
Well, enjoy it, have fun, and don't miss out a chance if you're at home to get in on Honda's fastest seat in sports sweepstakes. Enter at racewithhonda.com. Tonight's lucky winner, Charles Dodot. Well, he's from South Carolina. He did just that by logging on to racewithhonda.com and win the opportunity to start tonight's race. Take a look at Mother's Polished starting grid, how they will line up. Simon Pagenaud on the pole, only the second time in his IndyCar career, alongside Joseph Newgarden and Max Chilton, the rookie, in row 2. He's hot. Ed Carpenter, he's an oval specialist in row 4. And then you look back in row 5, Scott Dixon, not the qualifying position he wanted as well. Montoya back there. Teammates, Sato, Hawksworth, side by side, Bourdais, and the beginning of the Andretti squad with Munoz in row 8. And where's the rest of the Andretti team? There they are. Marco and Ryan Hunter-Reay. Back in row 10, James Hinchcliffe, dead last. He doesn't want to be there, but he will bring you some great shots today, courtesy of Lucas Oil from onboard the number 5 with James Hinchcliffe. Ryan Hunter-Reay with the Verizon onboard, the number 28. He's always good on oval. So is Sato in the number 14 from AJ Foyt Racing. Graham Rahal, Steak and Shake. Rahal, always spectacular on the ovals, not afraid to press. Neither is this man, Tony Kanaan. NTT Data will bring you shots as well. And don't forget, ride with Ed Carpenter with the Verizon streaming on board. Just download that IndyCar mobile app to access exclusive live onboard cameras, hear driver and pit crew chatter, and more only on Verizon. You guys ready for this?
Oh man, it's going to be action from the front to the back. You got all kinds of stories. Don't miss in the back, 2 yellow cars, Marco Andretti and Hunter-Reay, that'll be going big in the yellow DHL yellow Snapple car.
Who's going to be going big? I would watch for Newgarden on the outside. Track position is so key. Call this one, Brian.
Look for Ryan Hunter-Reay in the back as well. Pagenaud nice and slow alongside of him. Joseph Newgarden. Green, green, green. You hear him calling. Simon Pagenaud gets the jump, but Newgarden immediately looks to the outside.
And he's on the outside. High run. He's got the run on him, but Pagenaud hanging tough side by side.
Down into turn 3, the first time through. Those patches down on the inside have created problems all weekend long for these drivers. Joseph Newgarden leads lap number 1.
And I'm watching Will Power, too, already up to 5th place, started 8th, CANAL side by side. There are guys going for it here early. They still haven't settled in.
Highline has the momentum. He clears Power, and now he's set his sight on Pagano.
Joseph Newgarden out in front in his Fuzzy's Vodka machine, almost identical to Ed Carpenter's. Look for the white main plane on the wing and the fluorescent green on the roll bar, and you'll find Joseph Newgarden. There's the side-by-side racing that you expect in that spotter, absolutely critical here.
Everything happens so fast here. You rely totally. Hinchcliffe has got cars all over him. He's made a great start. Look at these two guys back at it again. Castro Neves, I think that is making a move on CANAL.
Castro Neves looks to the inside. CANAL stays high. It's cut and thrust on the racetrack, and our coverage is going to be back and forth as well.
We'll be talking a lot tonight about tire wear. Every driver knows this is my chance to go big while the tires are fresh before things start to scrub off and I get tire degradation. I gotta be bold, gotta go big.
And we got a green track. It rained like crazy all afternoon, so this is the first laps they've had on the track. There's no rubber. It all got washed off the track all afternoon, and we got hot, sticky, humid conditions now.
It's a bit of a rediscovery process, and look how close it is on the racetrack. And his teammate, Hawksworth,
Well, part of the issue was that Sato had Bourdais down below who was sliding up the track, and then his teammate coming through. This is Hawksworth and Bourdais side by side battling right now for 15th.
Part of the issue was, I think it was 3 cars trying to find a spot where there were only 2, and this is the battle for 15th.
Not only is it the battle for 15th, this is the urgent battle to not fall a lap down early. The leaders are almost going to catch the back of the field. It's about half a straightaway between Simon Pagano and Newgarden.
I'm looking out the window right now, and Ryan Hunter-Reay and Marco Andretti are having a battle like you wouldn't believe at the back of the field, trying to make position. As now we've got telemetry on board with Graham Rahal. Look at this track, how fast you're going. 166 miles an hour through the corner.
Well, it's the variation, high speed to low speed, only 10 miles an hour between max and min, maybe 15 miles an hour. That's how fast the Indy cars are through the corners here at Iowa. This is the battle for second. Castro Neves working Pagano.
Pagano is dropped back into Castro Neves' hands, and Castro Neves is pulled away from CANAL. Now, we watched this last night, Paul, and it seemed like Simon didn't have a great car off the corners, and I wonder if that's the same problem today.
I just saw the classic Pagano took the air away from Castro Neves, and he lost 5 positions, had to get out throttle. You see Graham here all over the back of the Ganassi car. He's on the inside, but that momentum. Whoa. No momentum. He just chopped the front wing off of him right there, Townsend.
Nice move from Graham Rahal, probably one of the best wheel-to-wheel racers in this sport. Now we go on board with Sato, who must still be catching his breath from the opening lap antics.
Looked like Sato might have a little push in the middle of the corner, but you talk to Rahal, he drives a very different line.
And I was watching Hawksworth just behind Sato, got big time loose there in the middle of 1 and 2.
The aerodynamics on these cars so critical. When you talk about taking the air off somebody, when you pull up in front, you really lose that air over the front of the car.
We were talking to the chief steward, Brian Barnhart, yesterday. I said, how do you feel about that? He goes, well, these radio guys on the radio, the spotters, are telling the guys, hey, the guy's running the high line, he's catching you, move up a lane and take a little bit of lane off of him.
And guys, we are 14 laps into this race, and already Joseph Newgarden has caught Gabi Chavez in 14 laps. This is where it gets tough for Newgarden. Your race leader got to make smart decisions here, work his way through traffic. You see him going high. That's a smoother but longer way around. And Pagano knows, okay, now I can start to be strategic. Newgarden goes low through 3 and 4.
It's held down low. He gets past Chavez and then Connor Daly there in the white, black, and green machine, and Newgarden through. Now Pagano will have to find a way through.
And we were talking about Marco, that he always makes big starts. He's really struggling. Look, he's just in front of Newgarden, about to go a lap down, which would be a huge disappointment for him.
And Paul, for a team like Andretti that's had 6 wins here in the last few years, this has got to be so frustrating for Marco to be falling into the jaws of the leader this early. Jan?
And of course, Joseph Newgarden is working hard now through lap traffic, but what he loves about this, remember, he is nursing that broken right hand. When you're the leader, it takes so much stress off the fact. Now, of course, now when he works behind Marco Andretti, he's really muscling the car, but he loves having clean air. Obviously, that'll help him with the longevity in this race.
Good stuff. You see Marco Andretti just there in front of Newgarden. Things settling down here at Iowa Speedway, the Iowa Corn 300. You're watching NBCSN's coverage of IndyCar, brought to you by Iowa Corn. Iowa Corn farmers grow corn for feed, food, and fuel. And by United Rentals, official equipment rental services, provider of IndyCar and proud sponsor of Graham Rahal. The intense action from Iowa Speedway continues right after this. Make sure you stay with us. Remember that NASCAR is on NBCSN. It was a close one last night in Kentucky with just enough fuel. Brad Keselowski saved it and took the checkered flag by 0.175 seconds ahead of Carl Edwards. Keselowski's second consecutive NASCAR Sprint Cup Series race. His third at Kentucky Speedway. The Sprint Cup Series live from New Hampshire next Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern on NBCSN. Joseph Newgarden from lap 1 took the lead from the pole sitter Simon Pagenaud, and he has never looked back.
He's been working on Hunter Ray for about 10 laps. Ryan was making it really, really hard, Towns, for him to get by. We had 3 Andretti cars all battling each other to keep Newgarden behind. The next guy in line is Munoz.
Well, so frustrating for a guy like Hunter Ray, 3-time winner here at Iowa. His team, Andretti's so strong. They're fighting as hard as they can to stay on the lead lap, and now Munoz's turn to do what he can to disrupt the air behind and hold up Newgarden.
Joseph Newgarden still holding down the points. So Chevy driver update. Newgarden obviously in a Chevy. He's out in front running strong, and the Chevy power plants in qualifying own the top 5 spots, very strong here. And you listen to some of the drivers say it's not so much about the power, it was about the aerodynamics.
I'll tell you what, Newgarden's car is so strong. He does the over-under. You see, he just turns in way late like a road course, and he carves underneath Munoz here. His car is really good, Towns.
Well, not only is his car good, Joseph Newgarden is one heck of a race car driver. Not only is he good behind the wheel, what a warrior, so strong. Think about the last time, guys, we saw an oval race. Newgarden was upside down, hard into the fence, broken clavicle, broken right hand. Now here he is dominating the early stages at Iowa on one of the most physical tracks on the schedule.
Be interesting to see the endurance that he has today. You talk about that accident, go back to Texas, Connor Daly down to the inside in the 18.
I can't. I've seen that 20 times, and it's as painful the 20th time as it was the first. Massive impact.
It took our breath away up in the booth, and the best thing was we watched him climb out of that car and then sit down beside it. But right now, Joseph Newgarden can drive that 21 wherever he wants to, high, low, in the middle, it doesn't matter.
A lot of traffic now in front of him. There's got just all spread out now, the field, as we see Sato loose in front of him. Whoa, going pretty wide.
Easy there.
Alexander Rossi just in front in the black and white 98. That's your Indianapolis 500 winner. And then Takuma Sato in the 14.
Looks like the tire deg now is really starting to creep in on guys. You see guys are getting loose. But Newgarden's car is still working really well as he makes the move past Sato and sets sail for Rossi. Rossi has really been on the move to try to stay on the lead lap because he was battling with Hunter Ray and all those guys and kind of drove away from him.
See Ryan Hunter-Ray not having the day that he wants, Katie.
Yeah, and remember, he has won the last 3 out of the 4 races here at Iowa Speedway. When I talked to him earlier this weekend, he said it's a combination of things that's wrong with their car this weekend. The heat has made a huge difference. They're bringing a different aero package this year, and those patches down in the corners are really making the car hard to handle.
Must be a setup that they've run in the past that those patches have affected, because obviously everybody has to run over them, and they're not affecting Joseph Newgarden right now.
I'm sure there's been scratching their head. They've made a little improvement, but Ryan told me this morning he's just still loose everywhere. This is Will Power chasing down Tony Kanaan. They're battling for 4th place right now, and it was Power that had a mega start. Got 3 or 4 cars in the first 2 corners running high. And Paul, you and I thought CANAL was going to be a factor all day, running reasonably well, but not as quick as Newgarden.
We got a long way to go still, so as the track rubbers in and things change here a little bit, I would expect once we get some yellows and some restarts, watch out for CANAL. But Kevin, what's going on?
CANAL coming off his best result of second as Will Power starts to challenge him a little bit. He's finished fourth on the other two ovals this year. There's been a lot of conversation about Tony Kanan's future. Some speculation. Is he going to be back? Is his future as a full-time driver in jeopardy? So I asked him point blank. He said, don't worry. Tell my fans I will be back next year. And I couldn't get him to say if it's with the Ganassi or what, but for Tony Kanaan fans, that's good to hear that he's very optimistic, that he's not all that concerned about racing full-time in 2017.
One of the favorites of the fans here of the Verizon IndyCar Series, Tony Kanaan is, and he's certainly one of the hardest working drivers out there and certainly still has the speed. Newgarden still has the speed. 2 seconds in front of Pagenaud, but Castroneves had been up there fighting with Pagenaud. He's dropped back a little bit. Will Power in that silver Penske entry behind Kanaan looks high, looks low, can't find a way by him. Down on the inside now.
And can he hold the position? Just couldn't quite hold the car down. Had to lift there at the exit of 4, and Kanaan is a master at keeping people behind him, regardless of racetrack. Now Power's got a run coming to 3.
Shows the momentum on the high side, but when you're on the bottom, you have to get back to the throttle so much sooner than the guy who's on the high side, because the momentum, it comes from the high side coming off the banking. As Power really now goes back to the high side.
Kanaan running a different line on each end of the racetrack. He's low in 1 and 2, and he stays up high in 3 and 4. Right there, the green and gold number 21, Joseph Newgarden. You see the number 1 in lights on the side of his car. He leads. This spectacular young man, is there a victory in store for him today?
We've seen pit stops already. Helio Castroneves, Joseph Newgarden. Now this is Tony Kanaan, who was running 4th in here early at Iowa. A little bit earlier than we expected. We'll keep an eye on tire wear. Kanaan is back out, Jan.
Yes, you talk about some of those pit stops that we've had already. Joseph Newgarden came in now. His teammate, Ed Carpenter, is making his way to pit road. For Joseph Newgarden, he had a very quick stop. It was 7.9 seconds. They're hoping for the same here for Ed Carpenter. Not quite as quick as what we saw for his teammate, but nice solid work. You'll also see the orange and white colors. That, of course, is Juan Pablo Montoya making his stop. They're going to make rear tire pressure changes. He says he has understeer, so also watch for a front wing change. There it goes. Half turn for front to hold that front down. And Juan Pablo Montoya, hopefully a better balance now.
Paul, you talked about it. This racetrack with the rain that they had, it's a different racetrack. Temperature is a bit different, and you got to go find the balance of the car right now.
Certainly there's a lot of different balances out there. We've seen plenty of cars getting loose, sideways off the corner, and I'm just watching some of these cars that are on fresh tires. Castroneves is going so fast right now compared to the other guys on old tires. Tires at the end of the race, if there's a late yellow, are going to be critical.
Simon Pagenaud now moves to the front. It looked like he was trying to come down to the pits. He is.
He
got balked down the back straightaway.
Tony Kanaan making a move to the inside as Pagenaud looked like he was trying to come in. As you said, Brian, the question is, does he have fuel 57 laps in? He should be okay.
But look at how fast Tony was going on that lap compared to Pagenaud.
The momentum that was taken away when he had to check up.
And what's that going to do to his gap to Joseph Newgarden after we cycle all the way through?
Dixon in.
We haven't seen him yet today. It's been fairly quiet so far, so he's been not really in the mix. He was chasing behind his teammate and has gone a few laps further.
Ryan Hunter-Reay. Kevin?
Two teammates pitting together. Will Power has pit out, and there's the leader, Simon Pagenaud, as we keep an eye on the race on track. Pagenaud leading his first oval laps of the season. He's led 8 of the 10 so far. It's a little better stop, though, for Will Power, so Power is going to pick up positions. He was 4th coming in. Pagenaud was the leader, but Power beats him out.
There's probably no other racetrack around where a pit stop is as critical as it is here. You get hung up for a half a second, you lost a lot of distance on the race.
Well, let's not forget what happened with Kanaan to lead into pit lane. That also added to the time. So now we're going to get to the point where things start to cycle back in. Chilton and Rossi still have not pitted. Chilton, your leader right now, but he'll have to come to pit lane very soon.
Joseph Newgarden just comes across the start-finish line. He's being shown in third. As you said, this will cycle through.
Chilton comes to pit lane.
A lot of cars in at this point in time. Hinchcliffe, Andretti, Kimball. Max Chilton in. Katie?
He pits from the lead, Brian, as the highest qualifying Chip Ganassi racing car, and he's just a rookie here, but he does have experience winning in Indy Lights, as you see his team rush over the wall to get 4 fresh new Firestone tires, fill them up with Sunoco fuel, and we'll see if they make a change. No changes for Max Chilton as he heads back out.
He had a solid run in Phoenix, and that's his first laps led in an Indy car so far, so it's, he's gone longer than anybody else out there.
Alexander Rossi, winner at the Indianapolis 500, still out on track, being shown in the lead. They must be on a different strategy already. That would not be surprising. We've seen them roll the dice early before.
Well, and one thing that Brian Herta and the Andretti guys did with Rossi, ran a ton of laps in practice, probably double any other car on track to give this rookie the experience on used tires, and that's going to be very valuable now. But he still has to make his stop, and that's Newgarden right behind him.
Look at how much faster Newgarden is on new tires versus the old. Watch him go by like he's standing still.
Just gives you an idea, the rolling speed through the middle of the corner, that's what it's all about. And
guys, just to put the emphasis on how strong Newgarden is running right now, before, I believe that's Rossi telling, Brian Herta telling Rossi, come to pit lane. Newgarden started the pit stop sequence with about 2 to 3 second lead. It's now 12 seconds over Pagano, so Newgarden is just crushing it right now.
And it also gives you an idea of how much time Pagano was cost by that balk as he tried to come into the pit lane. He had to go around another lap and had lost massive momentum. So between pit stops and the performance of this man, there on your left, Joseph Newgarden, gives you an idea just how quick he's running.
12-second lead is 3/4 of a lap so far, and we're only a third of the way into this race. So right now, Newgarden has everything under control.
A little bit slower stop, 9.2 seconds for Alexander Rossi, but when the car is good on an oval, you can do great things with it. Juan Pablo Montoya moving up the...
Well, he's 1 lap down is what I'm looking at. So Newgarden right now, after the pit stops, has lapped everybody through 5th place.
Wow. Joseph Newgarden right there in the 21. The number 1 on the side puts another one down. Takuma Sato disappears in the dust. Joseph Newgarden has the hammer down in Iowa. Encore in prime time. The hill. I always look at that and wonder, I could do it on a motorcycle. I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could do it on a bike. Talk about somebody who's getting the job done. You see Joseph Newgarden there at the back of the shot, that green, gold, fuzzy Chevy.
And that's Elio Castroneves right in front of him. And Castroneves, folks, is 3rd, about to go a lap down, running in the top 3. We are just at 1/4 distance.
And Castroneves will not make it easy. He is not an easy guy to pass. He's very good on ovals, so you see he's in a hurry now. He's like, holy crap, Newgarden's right behind me. I got to get by this lapped car. And he will not make it easy for Newgarden.
It's just absolutely impressive. Pagano some 13 seconds behind Joseph Newgarden, but he's about to lap 3rd place, and he looks to the high side, and his car has been working almost everywhere. It looks like he may get it done.
And what I look at is those white gloves. Whoa! As Castroneves works him right up to the wall. The white gloves from Newgarden tell it all. If you look at how stable his hands are through the corner, tremendous confidence, and now he's got to run.
I told you he's not going to make it easy, but as soon as Newgarden got to the inside, Castroneves had to give up the position.
And you said it, Townsend, the car just works. It's stable, and I don't know how to describe it to the folks at home, but when you've got a car that works on an oval, you can do magic with it, and that's exactly what Joseph Newgarden is doing today.
Especially at a bumpy track, Brian, like Iowa, where ride control can really differentiate yourself from the pack. You're watching him work Hawksworth, and it's so bumpy that it can really spread the field. If you're confident, you're fast. But remember, guys, Newgarden, he's got a broken hand, a broken clavicle. Look at the screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think 11 screws in his clavicle. And I think there's 13 in total. Unbelievable, the grit to be out there, first of all, but then to dominate in the way he's doing it right now. This is sensational.
Well, you just think about the belts pulled down over his shoulders, how tight those are. That hand having to grip the wheel and hold it around here.
To be in your 20s again. Townsend, you went for a jog yesterday. You pulled a calf muscle in the first 100 yards. And this guy's out here with a broken clavicle and a broken hand.
It's...
Hey, boys, remember this. Last year, Joseph Newgarden had a 4.5-second lead going to the last pit stop of this race, and the last pit stop was a disaster. That's the only reason Ryan Hunter-Reay got by him. So it's not anything new. He led the most laps last year. He clearly had the fastest car here last year, and clearly he's got the fastest car this year.
There is absolutely no doubt about that, Robin. Pagenaud now almost 14 seconds behind, so Newgarden just absolutely on a tear. And you think about championship implications. Pagenaud holding on to second, Castroneves to third. But remember, Will Power well back in ninth and Dixon in sixth. And those are guys that need to get a chance to move forward. They need to get past Pagenaud. We still have a long way to go, but Simon Pagenaud holding tough.
Yeah, Newgarden's got 6 cars to lap before he can get to Pagenaud. Pagenaud's got the hammer down too. He's running now lap for lap with Newgarden.
Oh, sorry, Newgarden it does catch him slowly in traffic. I find that Newgarden's car and his skills behind the wheel just are superior. So he's got about 4 seconds, 5 seconds until he catches Pagenaud, and he's reeling him in little by little.
And you talk about ride control, shock control, but also the aerodynamics. You know, which of these guys have decided to stack in the aero so they can get through traffic, and who's running a little less trim? Could that be some of it as well?
Well, it's tough to tell because the wing angles, the rear wing angle is obviously very strong. You have lots of little wickers and or gurneys that are put on those rear wings. As we watch, I believe that's Connor Daly now trying to hold off Pagenaud. And like you talked about earlier, Paul, if you're Pagenaud, you're like, man, I got to get after it and stay on the lead lap.
You know what's amazing to me with all this hard racing that's been going on? We haven't had a yellow yet. Nobody's touched each other. Nobody's banged wheels and gotten into it. So this race is going by quick.
And Brian, if that sticks up, Newgarden could lap the field.
Absolutely. He is closing down on Simon Pagenaud. You won't miss it. We'll be back to Iowa as Joseph Newgarden continues his charge. More coming this way. No quarters given here at Iowa Speedway. The Iowa Corn 300 teammates. Scott Dixon down on the inside in the 9. Tony Kanaan, you ride with him. That's the battle for fourth. And we were talking about the championship before the break, and Dixon doing what he needs to do. He needs to move forward. It looks like Kanaan slides up a bit. Kanaan drops the position. Dixon takes it over, but it may not be over with yet.
Well, and 3 of the most experienced drivers there running in order with Dixon, Kanaan, and Montoya. And these guys will be studying the balance of their race car, thinking about the controls that they have in their car. How do I set myself up for a strong run for the second half?
Well, we've talked a lot about Joseph Newgarden, the leader. Let's have Iowa Corn take us through the field. We'll start with Jan.
Yes, and of course, it's been a perfect day for Joseph Newgarden thus far. Great pit stop. The only change they made was a half a turn of front wing. He picked up a little vibration when he ran in traffic. Now that they've corrected that, he is off to the races. And man, if it stays like this, Kevin, he is just on a tear.
And Simon Pagenaud thought he had a great car coming in. When I asked him about it after practice last night, he said, wow, and if it wasn't for Joseph Newgarden, I think they would say Simon Pagenaud has a great car. 5th pole of the season, running up front, trying to extend that championship lead, which is 75 coming in. His teammate Helio Castroneves is behind him, but way behind him, not on the same lap at this point, or at least trying to avoid coming off a lap. Castroneves also felt he was really good. Now we're going to see him pit likely the soonest. He came in on lap 47, so he's due to pit any moment. Scott Dixon running in 4th. We saw him a moment ago get by his teammate Tony Kanaan. No coincidence that they're running close together. Dixon told me the car wasn't quite to my liking in practice yesterday, so we changed the setup and went to more what Kanaan has. Kanaan behind him running in 5th. He's likes his car coming in. Felt very confident. And remember, he's been the master at Iowa. He's led 523 laps, Jan.
And of course, right ahead of him is Juan Pablo Montoya. He started 11th. He's moved up to 5th. They changed a half turn on his last pit stop. Now he's got on the radio and said, I'm going to take that half turn out.
Tony Kanaan did lose another position, so he's falling back to where he started in 6th position, trying to chug his way to the front. He's won here before, and when he won, he started from way back in the mid-teens. Still an opportunity today, but everybody's going to have to get on their giddy up to catch Joseph Newgarden, Jan.
Now, of course, Ed Carpenter owns the car of Joseph Newgarden, and you can see by that hand position that he's having a little bit of push or understeer, meaning the car's not quite turning at the same level, but there's action on the track.
Hey guys, Ryan Hunter-Reay just blew a motor coming off a 2. I'm going to guess lots of fire and smoke down the back straight. That's going to put oil down everywhere. This will be a long yellow.
And that was a huge flame out, massive blow up, massive flames coming out of the back of the car, a contrail of about 30 feet long. That was very, very cool, but not cool for Ryan.
No, not at all. And you got to figure perhaps a turbo when you look at the smoke and the flame that came out of the exhaust. It seemed to be mostly on the left side, the left bank. But Ryan Hunter-Reay does a great job to keep the car straight and gets it slowed down, keeps it off the line up there, and doesn't drop it down to the inside.
Big breath of fresh air for Simon Pagenaud, right? Because he was looking in his mirrors, thinking about what his spotters tell him about where Newgarden was. Newgarden had one more car to put the entire field a lap down. Now everybody's going to come to pit lane under caution, and it's going to be a battle.
Man, you got to feel for Ryan Hunter-Reay. His season has just been falling apart, crumbling. Started off so well, and he's just had terrible luck the last 3 or 4 races.
And you got to feel like they probably came to Iowa and said, hey, we've got a racetrack where we run well. Here's the problem. There it is, that left bank just. And then with the additional fluid that comes out on the hot exhausts.
Watch this here. The flame was really, really big here.
Will Power there behind him.
Space shuttle.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, you could launch a small satellite with that kind of thrust.
You're right on board.
Wow, it's like the Batmobile.
That was impressive. Hey,
that was
this
cool.
is another thing, guys. If we hadn't gone yellow, look at the debris, look at the pickup on the tires on the high line there, and that'll give IndyCar a chance to sweep all the corners, which will make the restart pretty exciting if the track's clean. But if we get another long green flag segment, that's something you have to watch out for running high around here.
Well, you know, the other thing that you and I were talking about was it seemed like some of the magic had gone from Joseph Newgarden over the last 10 laps or so. Pagenaud began to eat into the lead that he had.
And one of the things I want to watch for is when Newgarden pits, do they take that front wing adjustment back out? Because it looked like they added front wing, and his pace started to fall off there. He was so strong, so I wonder if he went loose.
Pit this lap, pit off of 4, pit off of 4.
Here's the thing, if you're a lap down, you just stay out and get back on the lead lap and put these guys towards the back of the field.
Crew will go to work and start the cleanup process on the racetrack. Newgarden out in front, and strategy going to be being played out, Jan.
Yes, and what's incredible, as you see Joseph Newgarden peel off, there's only going to be 2 cars that are allowed to pit because there's only 2 cars on the lead lap. So we're going to watch carefully to see if what Townsend suspects, if they're going to take that half turn out. Oh, they added a little to front wing. Oh, but it's slow. Joseph Newgarden lost some time, Kevin.
So let's watch Simon Pagenaud. He's in front of him here in the bright yellow Menards car, but he has to make his stop. A little bit of understeer. He was asking for a tiny adjustment. Newgarden is still going to easily beat him out, and it's under yellow, so it's not significant. But Pagenaud is the one that still has an opportunity. He's packed up, and now the wave around makes things a little more interesting. We'll see the rest pit here in a moment.
Yeah, there was really no pressure, Jan, for Newgarden to make a fast stop. They could have took the opportunity, have a look around the car, clean out the rad boxes. He had a 12-second lead on the pit lane to Pagenaud, so there was really no urgency to be in a hurry.
Well, I think the urgency was just don't have any issues. How many times have we seen Newgarden pit from the lead, having a great race, and have issues on pit lane? As we watch Ryan Hunter-Reay, has to be just so dejected. 3-time winner here at Iowa, going home early.
Well, you look at him and you could see how sweaty he was. They've run 114 laps, and you can tell just how physical it is out there running at the speeds that they're running. And as Sebastian Bourdais said, one of the open pieces that we did. This is the corner that never ends. That's what this racetrack feels like.
And it's harder when your car's not handling well. When your car's working like Newgarden, it's a lot easier. But Katie, you found Ryan?
I do have Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Always got to keep working, and you always have to find a way to be faster. We came here, we had a test, we had a pretty productive test, had some hard times there, but wow, this was really bad today.
For yourself out.
First caution here at the Iowa Corn 300. Somewhat surprising, but we'll be back right after this. First and only caution of the day still out here for the problems for Ryan Hunter-Reay after the engine let go. Coming out of turn 2, the Iowa Corn 300, and the pace has been absolutely torrid, set by Joseph Newgarden, but a problem for his teammate and team owner, Ed Carpenter.
I don't really think they know what's going on there. Not really in any big urgency. Got the starter back in.
Came to pit road with the rest of the group. Jan?
It's a gearbox-related problem. He said on the radio, I cannot get any gears except for neutral.
As soon as I let the clutch out, it's grinding gears and kicking back to neutral.
Well, there you hear it right from Ed himself.
Yeah, that's not going to get you anywhere. So the car seemed fine when he came in, but they did the pit stop, and now a problem once he tries to launch. Helio Castroneves being shown in third, back on the lead lap, and that's the good thing about the wave around here. But look at the entry into the pit lane.
That was an awfully late decision by Castroneves to pit. He must have been confused or had a miscommunication with the team. That was Alexander Rossi.
I don't know if that's a violation, because I don't know if you're supposed to be outside that line.
The double white line?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Paul's talking about this line.
Missed the timing line getting into the pit lane. I wonder if that would be a potential penalty. Well, but now we have 11 cars back on the lead lap, and we've hit the reset button now, so this is going to get interesting. Guys have had a chance to make changes, and let's see if anybody's got anything.
Even Joseph Newgarden with a change, as we heard him say, a little more front wing.
You know, a guy that I'll be watching on this restart is going to be Graham Rahal. Haven't talked much about him tonight, but he's quietly worked his way up to 8th. He's got fresh tires, and he likes to go big on restarts on a track like this. But in front of him, a bunch of Chevy drivers that are also be very strong.
Castroneves will be trying to see what he can do. There's Graham Rahal. And these starts and restarts, always exciting on short ovals such as this. We talk about the championship implications to all of this, and Simon Pagenaud, your points leader out in front. He leads by a pretty good margin over Castroneves. Newgarden there in second, tied with Helio Castroneves, but this is as they run right now.
This is as they run right now, and don't forget, when we get to Texas, Newgarden won't be allowed to start for the makeup race. But I'm not going to remind him about that now. If I'm on the radio with him, he's done a heck of a job.
Don't take his joy away right now. Simon Pagenaud leads the points, but it's Joseph Newgarden who leads the race from here. The Iowa Corn 300, more coming your way.
Welcome back to Iowa Speedway, and if you caught the pre-race show, you see we scribbled out what we thought would be the projected pit windows. And in fact, that's what happened. They pitted in the 50s the first time around. This caution came at 1:14. So what's going to happen now, these two windows are going to change slightly. You've got 190, and you've got 260 now. Let's go green. Here's what's expected to come.
And that yellow changes everything, but the competition is going to stay intense. Right now, Newgarden maintains the lead, but Pagenaud really pushing, and behind them, a great battle, Alexander Rossi and Helio Castroneves in there. Also see Juan Pablo Montoya. It is going to be intense these first few laps.
Well, Rossi's a lap down to a lot of the guys that are behind him, like CANAL right here and Graham Rahal, so these and Dixon. So they're going to want to make short work of him and get in the mix with Newgarden and Pagenaud.
Fresh tires, loads of mechanical grip. Super fast minimum speeds through the corners on a restart. We have 11 cars on the lead lap as Castroneves gets around Rossi. Here comes Montoya.
If you've made changes to your car, how long is it going to take before you know? Is it 1 lap? Is it 2? Is it 3?
You're going to feel it hopefully right away. The question is what happens towards the middle or end of the tire stint. You won't know until you get there.
Yeah, and let's not forget the track is now rubbering in because it rained all this morning. So these two guys, look at how loose he gets coming off the corner, but the track is now rubbering in. Guys are going to have a better handle on their cars.
And luckily, CANAL had a pretty good gap on Hinchcliffe behind him, who's a lap down, so no pressure from behind there.
Certainly close, but it's not close up front anymore because Joseph Newgarden has leapt out just like he did before, already almost a second in hand. It'll be interesting to see this time by at the line, and it looks like his Fuzzies machine still working very, very well.
Well, he's not pulling away like he did in that first 100 laps. So he's maintaining a 1 second gap. There was a while there he was driving away a second a lap.
Well, I don't think Newgarden has the advantage over Pagenaud until he catches lap traffic, and that's going to be another about 10 laps, 15 laps until he catches Connor Daly, and then he'll start slicing through the field like a ninja, Paul.
Well, in fact, Pagenaud closed down on Newgarden a little bit that last lap, but it also looked like he had to check up a little bit at the exit of 2, so it's a little bit of give and take. We're still talking about tenths and hundredths of a second as they change.
But we're watching Rossi here holding off the Ganassi crew. He's a lap down. He's making it tough for Dixon.
Well, this is where the race control might step in because Rossi is already a lap down from the leader, and race control might alert the 98 as it's close. Don't make it that hard for these guys because if a yellow comes out, he won't get his lap back.
And you can see how that momentum gets broken.
You can see that washout that he got. He tried to keep it on the bottom and put the throttle down early, and it just pushed up and almost got in the back bumper of Rossi's car.
Think about how many times Alexander Rossi has gone
off
on
too.
Now
making it really tough.
Now I'm not going to be happy.
I was going to say, I'm watching his hands. I don't see him get on the radio, but if that were me, Paul, I'd be screaming in the radio right now.
The problem you got is he's not driving a consistent line, high or low. He's like at the bottom, he's at the top, so it's difficult to get a run on a guy when he changes his line every corner.
And now Simon Pagenaud has his mirrors full of his teammate, Helio Castroneves. Remember, Castroneves second in the championship. He wants a way past Pagenaud.
It's kind of the same way it was at the beginning. Castroneves pulled up on his teammate, kind of worked him a little bit, and then lost touch with him. We've heard there's no action for Helio on that pit lane coming in where he was over the white line and kind of did a different entry to everybody as he continues to try to close up on his teammate. And Newgarden is now stretching further away from Pagenaud.
So interesting to watch. Just every other lap, you can either gain a little bit or lose a little bit. It's like you said, as the run went longer before, Castroneves dropped back a bit.
Well, and I said 10 to 15 laps. Newgarden has already caught the tail end of the pack. Here he goes on Connor Daly up ahead of these two guys that are racing. So now Newgarden gets to see, has the change on pit lane, that extra front wing. Is that going to help or hurt as he works his way through the back of the field?
And I know the officials have been looking at lap times, and they were very strict with 105%, but Connor Daly, while he may not make that lap time from time to time, has done a great job of being aware and letting the leaders through.
I think that first stint, there was probably half the field wasn't within 105% of Newgarden's pace,
exactly.
So pretty hard to enforce that.
Kyle Moyer's on the stand for Simon Pagenaud and Townsend. He's thinking along the lines of you, and maybe also to pump up his driver a little bit. During that caution, he told Simon, you're just as fast, or you were just as fast at the start of the race of Newgarden. He was better than you through traffic. So now, as they work their way through traffic, we're getting a little sense of that again, and we'll see if Newgarden stretches that advantage again.
Look at Montoya. He's quietly worked his way through the field. Now he's in touch with his Penske teammates. So this is a guy right here at the end of the race. If he continues to keep moving through, he'll be a factor in the last 10 laps.
Look at what it takes to go fast on a short oval like this, and Juan Pablo Montoya certainly has it. The guts, the courage to get it done, and even in that first stint, he had been moving forward from a qualifying position that did not please him.
And this, on the first stint, this is where Newgarden was so strong. It feels like Pagenaud's actually stronger in the tail end of the stint. Jan Beekes, what do you know?
Well, you'll notice that Ed Carpenter is back on track now, and he has a completely new gear set. This is what you might call your emergency kit. You can put in an entire new set of gears, and they did that so quickly under the caution and only lost a few laps under green. So here's your toolkit. Here's how you drain it. They have the amount of fluid already pre-prepared, and they slapped in a whole new set of gears for Ed Carpenter, and he's back underway. It was 17 laps that he lost because it's such a short track. That's still a very fast change.
Pretty impressive. In the days when you and I used to race, you have to make a gear change in the race, you would lose a half an hour.
You make me sound old when you say that.
Joseph Newgarden, he's certainly not old, but he has taken a lot of these drivers to school as he continues to lead here in Iowa. Joseph Newgarden leads here, but the last time he was victorious, Toronto, Canada. June 4th of last year, he celebrated, signs the camera, gives a hug to Sarah Fisher. And remember, next week, the Verizon IndyCar Series is going to come to you from the streets of Toronto, and you can watch on CNBC. Don't miss Toronto Grand Prix next Sunday, 2:30 Eastern on CNBC. Always loved that race. Enjoyed it as a broadcaster, as a driver, and as a fan. It's always a great event. This one is as well. And for Joseph Newgarden, still has a long way to go. We're just past halfway, so 141 laps to go. He's got to have a smile in his helmet right now. That car working so well.
Well, maybe not if he doesn't get any help from Kimball.
Smiling with Kimball.
Charlie Kimball's 2 laps down, and that's racing a guy pretty hard.
I'll tell you what,
that's leading the race.
Kimball's the nicest guy in the paddock and the toughest guy on the track to pass. He is not making it easy, and then now you can see the gap. He's falling back just by that little chop move by Kimball on the exit of the corner.
It's one of the things that we've talked about through practice and qualifying and the race, watching these guys on track. Somebody takes the air away and you lose that momentum. It can take several laps to get back.
Well, in this case, Kimball just kind of held him low off the corner, and if I'm Joseph Newgarden, I'll do the same thing. I got to check up, protect this great race car that I have. Now, keep in mind, Charlie Kimball knows, yeah, I'm 2 laps down, but if I get a yellow timed right on a pit stop and another guy, a guy like Newgarden pits under green and I'm able to pit under yellow, I can make up those 2 laps.
Problem you have too, if you're Newgarden, you're having to race guys that hard that are 2 laps down, and you get in underneath of a guy and he turns down and you got to check it up. I know this all too well. You back out of the throttle mid-corner, the back end jumps out, and you end up in the wall when you're trying to lap somebody for the second time.
buried as well. He can't do anything.
Crew just talking to Joseph saying, it's all right. Pagenaud's buried in the traffic as well.
And those are the kind of updates you want. You have to remember, when you're driving one, you have no idea what's going on around you other than I got a fast car and I'm working on the guy in front of me. It's very helpful to have the big picture reminder every few laps as you're making key decisions about how much to push to get by a lap car.
But this stint so much different. Only 3.5 seconds in hand. Graham Rahal running 8th right now. You can look from onboard his MyJack camera. Remember, that fastest seat in sports, you can be a part of it too. Just go to racewithhonda.com to sign up and enter for your chance to lead the start of a Verizon IndyCar Series race in the Honda 2-seater driven by Mario Andretti.
That's Mikhail Aloshin going by for position. Graham Rahal runs this really unique, if not bizarre, racing line around here. Watch this. He'll turn in, and then he gets a ton of push, and he runs right up to the wall. That's an easy car to pass around a track like this, Paul.
Especially when you leave the door wide open. As we go back to CANAL here, he has lost touch with his teammate Dixon. Him and Dixon were racing each other pretty hard for a long time, but there's something happened here.
This is with Alexander Rossi, 1 lap ago.
Whoa. Whoa. And remember, we talked about those marbles, and those marbles are accumulating fast on the high line in the light gray area. And that was the penalty for CANAL getting through the stuff, the clad. Kevin?
You noticed earlier, Townsend, when CANAL had a moment, he didn't seem to hit the button. Well, he hit the button that time. He was not pleased with Alexander Rossi. All things considered, though, this stint, the car has been much better for CANAL. Everybody's been able to somewhat keep up with Joseph Newgarden. At least he's not lapping the field like he did in the first stint.
Oh, and that's what I was saying. It's a completely different stint. Only a 2.5 second lead right now for Joseph Newgarden. But we understand the problem for Juan Pablo Montoya.
Better now? I think you came back, yeah. All right, keep digging.
Sounds like he had some type of an ignition box problem, maybe Townsend, and switched ignition boxes, like it lost its power.
Yeah, you have a couple of different wheel positions. There's a dash switch typically and a wheel switch, and oftentimes your engine manufacturer tech can tell you to switch to a different position and reprogram things.
Well, and you talk about having to lift in a corner. If you've got a technical problem in a corner and the engine misses, you can have the same problem that you were talking about earlier as Graham Rahal now on pit road. Kevin?
I didn't hear exactly what it was, but it was an urgent request for Graham Rahal, so he said, let's pit right now. So something amiss that felt like he needed to come in earlier than expected. So this is an earlier than scheduled stop for Rahal, who's already fallen off the lead lap. Sunoco Fuel and back out with fresh Firestones.
I can only imagine that that's a handling request, meaning I can't hang on to this thing. I need to pit now. Now he's still in the fuel window to make it on one more stop, I believe, but if he can't go long without the handling going away, it's going to be a struggle.
But interesting, didn't see any changes to the front wing, perhaps air pressure changes. Jan, what's going on with Juan Pablo Montoya?
Well, here's what's interesting. It didn't sound good. You heard the radio communication, then all of a sudden it cleared up. And I asked, well, did he make any changes or switch electrical boxes? It said no, it just cleared up. And now we're fine. We don't really know what the issue is, but obviously look at his speed against his teammate on the high side.
He went by Castroneves like he was standing still right there. So a problem for Castroneves. He's peeling off and coming to the pits now. So something was going on there with Castroneves because he was really slow off of 2.
And there he is down on the apron coming to pit road. It'll be a long run down to his pit stall at the far end of this racetrack, and so painful to stop under green. Kevin?
Castroneves coming in for stop number 3, running consistently in the top 5. He's led a lot of laps here at this place, but he's not been able to win. But he said we've consistently had a good car, and he felt like he was going to have a chance today. There's a half turn of wing out. Sunoco Fuel, Castroneves back in the fight.
So perhaps Helio Castroneves just a little bit loose. Castroneves, our Chevy driver profile. How well has he done in his oval career? 181 starts, 16 wins. He is a wheelman on these ovals. And a problem for Montoya again.
A little bit of smoke, just a little trail there.
That's not a reset.
No. So there must have been something going on. He must have lost power for a minute. It was on the verge of blowing up, and now it's gone away.
And that's terrible for a guy like Castroneves who just pitted.
Get to a safety truck if you can.
You're hearing them telling him to get to a safe location. But it looks like he will be making it to pit road. And when you hear that radio conversation, they thought that it had cleared up. But remember, Chevrolet has had some electrical issues. We don't know if that's related, but I just seen a Chevrolet technician grab a new box that they were going to change. Remember, that is what struck Simon Pagenaud with some of his issues, as well as Scott Dixon. Could this be one of the same? I'll have to check and find out.
Well, we've got one Honda and one Chevy so far in this race has gone away, and Montoya's, he's upset. You can tell by the way he's jumping out of the car. A little bit of aggression there.
You can see the smoke out of the one bank, and I guess perhaps you could have an electrical issue that affects only one side, but
that doesn't look electrical.
No. As the crew goes to work there, the yellow out on the racetrack. The good news is there was some smoke, obviously, out of the right bank, but didn't see a lot of fluid. This has not been a very good racetrack for Juan Pablo Montoya.
One hasn't been for lack of speed. Here he has an issue with Carpenter in 2014 as Carpenter comes down low as Montoya was trying to put a nose in there. And then last year, Paul, this happened.
He was leading the race and had a suspension failure and hit the wall really hard. And now his 3rd time here this year, he has failed again. So no finishes for Montoya on this track.
Crew in no hurry, so that gives you an idea of what they think that the problem is, and that would be terminal. We'll watch the cars now head to pit road. Joseph Newgarden leads the train.
And he'll be the first one to stop as we take a look at all 3 pit stops. There will be 6 people on the lead lap taking stops We'll look to see if he makes any changes this time on the wing. No changes for Joseph Newgarden, and he had some trouble getting away, but not this time. This is perfect. Kevin?
So he's got an early entry. We're still waiting for Pagenaud and Dixon. Pagenaud in the middle, Dixon on the bottom. Pagenaud will get there first. They're going to make a change to help him with entry. We also see CANAL in front of him, and Power has the first pit entry box. Meanwhile, we saw Newgarden get way ahead of everyone, so he easily beat everyone out. Then Pagenaud next. Then it is almost even between Power and CANAL. And then after that, we have Oloshin getting in front of Dixon.
Slow stop for Dixon, but you saw that stop by Newgarden was not particularly fast, but he had a 6-second lead coming in, so there was no point in trying to beat yourself in the pits. So it looked like CANAL was the guy who made some positions.
And you can tell just how close it is on pit road. In fact, I think Tony CANAL right now, Will Power, still arguing over who belongs where. The day goes up in smoke for Juan Pablo Montoya in Iowa.
And pit stops continue here at Iowa Speedway, and of course, one person who made a pit stop because of is Juan Pablo Montoya. We had heard some radio communications that you had a misfire, that there was an issue, and then it seemed to clear up though.
But it was weird because, yeah, it didn't, like for me, I couldn't hear a misfire, just a little bit of power. And then it came back, and then something bigger happened. But, you know, the Velvet Chevy was so good today. I really wanted to try to give those guys a win. And, you know, we struggled the last few weeks. And here we're so strong, you know. It started 11, I was third there. And I thought, you know, at the end of the race, I thought I was going to have a shot. I was really taking care of the car and the tires. I wasn't pushing the issue that early.
All right, well, they're getting ready to go back to green. Sorry you're not in there.
Yeah, it's okay.
Bad luck continuing for Montoya here in Iowa. That's okay, and he walks back. But man, here we go, going back to green. What does Simon Pagenaud have?
He was right up the back end.
Yeah.
He was ready for that restart. He's going on the high line, Townsend.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Joseph Newgarden's been so strong on the start. He'll protect to the inside, get up to speed, and now watch the gap grow.
Dixon around the outside of Oloshin. Castro Neves trying Oloshin on the outside.
Whoa, CANAL. Tony CANAL putting the nose where the sun doesn't shine.
Blue number 10, he was not to be held back. It looked like Will Powers was going to charge at the start, but he's been balked after that move with CANAL, dropping back into the clutches of Dixon.
Tony's got to run on Pagenaud now. He's closing up on Pagenaud quickly. Dixon now all over the back of Power.
Every time you get a pit stop, you get an opportunity to improve your car. I don't know, after Will Power got balked, he's starting to move back up, but CANAL now hanging tough with Pagenaud. On board, Tony CANAL.
See that hand position of CANAL getting the leverage on the steering wheel. He always drives with his hands at 11 and 3. He pulls down on that steering wheel, as we see here with Power. It's coming around the outside of him. The door is closing.
Oh, that is tremendous faith in Will Power.
Something going on with CANAL now. He's slowed dramatically for some reason. He just got passed by Power. And Dixon is now on the back of him.
Sounds like he's up to speed. I don't know if something happened on track handling-wise. The engine sounds strong. And CANAL back up to speed, but something definitely happened to drop him back.
All it takes is one bobble, one moment, and you can get chewed up through the front of this field.
Things have stabilized again at the front. Now Newgarden with about a 1 second lead. Let's hear, we hear from CANAL here. Oh, it's like it went, like it jumped out of gear or something, but it was still driving. That was very weird. It was a loud bang, and then he really didn't have any drive, Townsend.
Or the car bottomed, which is hard to believe it would bottom that hard. That was bizarre.
But the exhaust note almost sounded like it went
that
up
was
another
very,
gear.
very
The
strange.
RPMs fell and
could have jumped out of gear.
Very odd, but now CANAL is going to have to battle with Will Power
104
again.
to go.
Wow, Will Power getting really close to the wall on the exit of turn 2. A little bit like what we saw with Graham Rahal's line earlier.
It's almost like the car did an upshift in the middle of the corner.
Yeah. You know,
he
runs these big shift paddles, and I wonder if the inertia of the bump, perhaps somehow with the bigger shift paddle, if that can kick the thing into a false gear a little easier than if you ran the smaller shift paddles. We're on board here, and you can see the shift paddles right there. And those are a little bit bigger than most drivers would run.
You see it kind of hangs out in the air too when you go through the corners. That shift paddle sticking out in the air, and when you're going 170 miles an hour through the corners, there is a possibility that it could catch the wind and push the paddle back.
Will Power running really high through 3 and 4. That makes it pretty easy for a trailing car to stay close. Now Power goes low, and you can hear CANAL has to check up, but watch what happens here in 3 and 4. Power's going to go high. That gives CANAL a ton of clean air. So if I'm Will Power's spotter, I'm going to tell him, hey, do what you can to stay low through 3 and 4 and disturb the air for CANAL behind you.
You're right on board with James Hinchcliffe. Man, started last and has moved up. He's our Iowa Corn biggest mover now, up into the 8th position. And to do that on an oval like this is pretty impressive indeed. 14 positions. And, you know, Hinchcliffe has won here before. He's another guy who came in here and said, I think I know how to get the handle on this racetrack.
You know he's got a good car. His teammate Aloshin has been solid in the top 10 all day, and he's had to move his way through the field. So both of the Schmidt cars are really, really good today.
Yes, but it wasn't so good early on in the race for James Hinchcliffe. He said the car was pitching on him in turn 1 and 2. So he and his engineer, Alan McDonald, have been working on this car throughout the whole race. And he says, I've been having trouble with the anti-roll bars. Of course, you can change the front or the rear anti-roll bar to get your balance. He's been having trouble with that not functioning. But now, obviously, under caution, they got that fixed, Katie.
And remember, neither Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports car has raced here at Iowa Speedway with the Aero kits. Both of them were not in the race this year, so Mikhail Aloshin was the highest qualifying Honda, and he hasn't finished inside the top 10 since St. Pete, so the Mad Russian is still just kind of using this as a test session, but a pretty good one at that, Ryan.
I'll tell you why those roll bars didn't want to adjust, Townsend. You're under load constantly all the time. You're pulling 5.5 Gs through the corners, and you're pulling over a G for 17 seconds of this whole lap. And those bars don't like to adjust when they're under load. When you're in a straight line, they'll adjust.
What you have to do on a track like this is if you're trying to make an adjustment before turn 1, you almost have to turn right to unload that 1 G that you get on the D part of the front straight, and then that'll loosen up the roll bar. But you're absolutely right. Great point, Paul.
CANAL has closed back in towards Will Power, but can't do anything about it. And up front, nothing has changed as Joseph Newgarden, just over 2.5 seconds in hand. He pulled that gap early and has maintained it over Simon Pagenaud. Such an impressive run by Joseph Newgarden. You look at what he went through at Texas. He's put it all behind him, as he has with the competition. He leads from Iowa. Joseph Newgarden still out in front, 25 years old and absolutely dominating here at Iowa Speedway. Started second, and Paul said it, he's going to jump to the front right on the start. It took him a lap, but he led the first lap and has been spectacular ever since.
Well, but here we go again. Newgarden trying to work his way through traffic. That was Hinchcliffe making things very difficult. Hinchcliffe trying to fight to stay on the lead lap, but now Will Power is into the slower traffic, working Gabby Chavez.
He was working Chavez, and that allowed Dixon. Dixon just got by CANAL, and he closed the gap immediately to Power. And like you said during the break, Townsend, this guy is the silent assassin. You'll never hear him coming, and he'll slit your throat.
See how he gets around Tony Kanaan. You're right on board with Tony. There's Scott Dixon in the red number 9. Here, Tony just have to get out of the throttle up high.
Dixon's amazing. You know, you just never see the fireworks except at the finish line for this guy. It just wins and wins, doesn't make noise about it, doesn't complain about things. He just studies and then moves in for the kill. And all of that experience through the years on short ovals pays big dividends here. Certainly has many more years on oval races than Will Power, who's just in front of him right now.
Got the air taken off of him there, and that really pushed him back. So the front end took off on him big time there. He was making moves on Power, and then Power took the air away, and now you can see there's about a 6 or 7 car length gap that quickly.
Not a real big surprise that Dixon is getting better as the race goes on. I mentioned earlier that they made some changes that they haven't really tested or practiced. Going to more to CANAL setup, he expected, as we take a look at Mike Hall, who was on the stand calling the race for Scott Dixon, he thought it would get better as it went along. We will simply tune it as we go, and the car is to his liking, at least as close as it's been here late in the race.
Just saw Scott Dixon looking down in the cockpit. I wonder if he's
maybe making a bar change.
Yeah, but typically you wouldn't have to look down for that reason.
Well, remember, Scott Dixon dropped in the championship after problems that he had at Road America. He sits fourth right now behind Will Power, the car in front of him. He wants to move forward. So does this man, Sebastian Bourdais. And it's not like Bourdais doesn't know how to win on an oval. He was spectacular at Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, the guy dominated the race. Had kind of similar to Newgarden. He led by over a lap, won convincingly. So this is a great event for him so far, running in 7th. Typically not the kind of track that he likes, Townsend.
He's talking with his spotter before the race up on the roof, and we see Jimmy Vasser calling the race for Bourdais, and he said, you know, we've got a top 7 car, we just have to get there. Well, guess what? He's running 7th right now, Katie.
Townsend, you guys were talking about Sebastian's dominant win at Milwaukee last year. Well, bad news for the rest of the field, because Sebastian came over the radio and said, guys, I haven't felt this comfortable on an oval since last year at Milwaukee.
Well, there you have it, and we said you've got to feel good right behind him. I'm not thinking that Jack Hawkworth feels very good. I saw the car get very loose.
Something going on with Carpenter here. He's slowed way down for some reason.
Just getting out of the way, 17 laps down, doing the right thing, and here comes Scott Dixon.
The silent assassin crept up on Power. Now look who's right in front of him. Is Pagenaud is just right in front of him as well. So
see Simon Pagenaud there in that fluorescent yellow 22. And Dixon, yeah, he's on the charge. He's beginning to cut into that gap.
I promise you, Scott Dixon has been just tuning on his controls, finding the bar positions that work, thinking about what's the right weight jacker in traffic. Every stint you learn, every lap you learn, and you put it all together for that final stint, and here he comes.
That DNF was devastating last week at Elkhart Lake, so he's got to get ahead of Pagenaud, and he's got to chase down Newgarden if he's going to make a dent in this championship going down the line at the end of the season.
Whoa, what was that?
Rossi getting all kind of darty there on the back straightaway.
They're behind.
Whoa, he's loose.
James Hinchcliffe.
We saw him driving Texas crazy loose, so this is something that he's kind of gotten used to.
Whoa! And
he's
again,
really loose. So watch out here for these guys coming up to lap him, because he's out of control right now.
Well, the problem of being a rookie is
look at this. Look at this. He's got the run.
He's got him.
He's got him, yeah.
Next up, Joseph Newgarden. Now he's 7 seconds ahead, Newgarden is, from Dixon. But Dixon will have a little bit of clean air here.
The mid-cornering speed of Dixon's car was just way better than Pagenaud. So Pagenaud's lost the handling of his car through the corner.
Remember, we saw changes on Simon Pagenaud's car on that last stop. Perhaps they went too far or the wrong direction.
And now we're about 67 laps from the finish. We're just starting to enter that final window where you could take a gamble and try to pit early. But then you would expose yourself to maybe a yellow coming out with a guy like Alexander Rossi who's hanging on.
Pagenaud's losing ground to Dixon. Now he's got Power all over the back of him as well.
See Dixon cross the line. You saw Joseph Newgarden cross it earlier than that. 9 seconds. It's right at a half a lap Joseph Newgarden has in hand. But Scott Dixon has his head down, is up on the wheel, and is driving to the front. Newgarden still in control. Those last laps before a pit stop, you want to get what you can get and get as much distance as you can. But Simon Pagenaud, trying to pull away from Will Power, had James Hinchcliffe in between, and you could see just how intense that battle got. And now he's been able to use the pick of James Hinchcliffe, and he's pulled out on Will Power, and that was close at one point in time. Tony Kanaan into pit lane, Marco Andretti as well.
Tony Kanaan has been running as high as the top 4, slipped a couple of spots. He is likely making his final stop of the race. He is going to take a turn of front wing. Keep in mind, Kanaan and all of those up at the front do have an extra set of stickers. If we get a late yellow, Kanaan is back out.
Kanaan back out, Newgarden still on track, but you know, we had followed this battle before with Will Power, had been there with Simon Pagenaud, but Graham Rahal to the left of your screen was just in, has fresh tires, and he's been able to separate Will Power from Simon Pagenaud a little bit more, and that's not good news for Power.
You can see how much faster the fresh tires are. Elio's the next guy that's going to come to the pit lane here pretty soon.
And Castroneves was caught out by that last caution. He had just pitted, so he should have been running up in the top 3 or 4, but he's been a lap down. Quick final stop for Castroneves at 7.2 seconds.
Great stop at 7.2 seconds. The question is, when will Joseph Newgarden head to pit lane?
Well, he has such great, there's the yellow. Oh, that is brutal for Tony Kanaan. And Chilton losing it off at 2. Now it looks like he spun Paul and probably flatted the tires on the spin is my guess.
2 times in a row for Castroneves, he was in the pits and it went yellow.
Well, he'll be 2 laps down. 2 laps down now, but for Tony Kanaan, that's what you're worried about.
Absolutely, and that part of it you cannot control. You can have strategy, you can work your setup, but you can't control Lady Luck.
Oh, that's brutal. That's the insurance of hanging on as long as you can for your final stop to protect against exactly this, because remember, the rest of the field is hanging on to their car too. The probability of a yellow goes up because of this. Max Chilton just gets into some dirty air. I think he was behind Bourdais.
Yeah, he just got loose coming off and slides all the way down the back stretch. The tires pop right there. The guy who made a move right before that yellow was a lotion, got by Power, so.
Power was falling backwards pretty quickly with those older tires. You got to think that he was wanting to come to pit lane.
So now, even though Newgarden was protected by the yellow, he lost a 10-second advantage. He has to come to pit lane and race Penske and Ganassi for the lead.
Fresh tires.
His 2 stops he's done so far have been in the high 8s and low 9s. And we know Penske, Ganassi can consistently do stops in the 7s.
So it's time to perform, and it's going to be a sprint. When you think about it, they'll probably be, well, they'll easily be less than 50 laps when we do go back to green.
Not forget last year, same position. He led the whole race, and on the final pit stop, they had a bad pit stop, put him in back behind a couple guys, and he never recovered.
We talk so much about the individual in this sport, but this is where team comes into it more than ever. The pressure will be on everybody with the air gun and the fuel nozzle to absolutely get it perfect.
Pits now open.
Surprised they're letting Chilton drive back with 2 flat tires. It's pretty hard to move one of these cars to be dragging on the ground. It would never hardly get anywhere and do damage. So guys were laid out, and this is the money stop right here when they bring the cars to the pits.
Joseph Newgarden down on the apron to the inside. His crew member has his hand up, ready for the stop.
And Paul and Townsend have already set the stage. The crew definitely knows they have to perform on this one. This will be his last stop for Sunoco Fuel. Doesn't mean he wouldn't stop again later for tires. So far it looks clean. Oh, that was right around. That was 8.8. Now we'll see what the other 2 do, Kevin.
Long run at 50 miles an hour towards pit out. Dixon gets there just barely ahead of Pagenaud. Dixon comes in second. Pagenaud in third. They were talking about front wing adjustment for Pagenaud, but he was concerned about the rear, so just a little half turn. And Dixon and Pagenaud get out almost side by side behind Newgarden, and Power is going to get out 4th on this stop.
Looks like Dixon made it to the line first there. That was an awesome drift job.
That was critical.
Spectacular.
That was critical if he's going to be able to make a move on Newgarden, because if he got behind Pagenaud, it would probably take him 20 or 30 laps to overhaul him.
But I saw something I haven't seen all race long, and that was an adjustment on Joseph Newgarden's car.
Well, not only an adjustment, but with that extra front wing adjustment, they still crushed it on pit lane as we see the exit from Dixon. Look at the slip angle there. That is a beautiful job leaving
Tokyo Drift.
Absolutely.
In Iowa.
And remember, he's driving a shorter distance, so his gap is going to gain there as he hits the transponder line.
And that is the difference in a 1/10 or 2 of a second in the crew getting the job done and getting it off the jacks and getting the car moving.
But how about that ECR crew? I mean, to go against Penske and Ganassi, battling for the win on pit lane. They didn't make a single mistake. You got to be proud if you're on that team right now, because as we mentioned so many times in the past, it's gone wrong in the final moments for Newgarden.
They've been flawless all day, but we got 50 to go, and when you got Dixon behind you on a restart, that all can change.
interesting to see when we go back to green, the changes that were made. Will Joseph Newgarden have the same car that he's had throughout? Still plenty to go from Iowa.
Welcome back to the Iowa Corn 300, where the pit stop sequence has been completed, now under caution. But of course, that was exactly what Tony Kanaan and Helio Castroneves did not want. They had pitted just a couple of laps previous to that. If we go back to the whiteboard, we can see what's going on here. 230 was where we saw the pit window open. And for Castroneves, or in this case Kanaan, he stopped on 241. That's in the window, no problem. And 242 was Castroneves. So you're thinking, well, that's fine. I'm in my final window. However, those who stayed out, like Joseph Newgarden and the rest of the leaders, they waited and waited. They weren't going to run out of fuel until 260. So they waited, they got a caution, and now they have leapfrogged their way all the way to the front, because you pit under green here, you lose 2 laps. You pit under yellow, you stay on that very same lap.
Absolutely brutal. It's like we said, you can control a lot of things, but you can't control Lady Luck. And talk about Lady Luck, Sebastian Bourdais, call it lucky or a technical issue, a problem on the pit stop.
Stalled it. Yeah, he just stalled it, and it just didn't want to refire again. They were cranking it over, and it didn't want to start it under yellow. He's got a long time to start this thing, and it just didn't want to go.
Couldn't get the starter in.
Hasn't really cost him any positions. He's in the same spot he was in, but he lost the lap, so not on the lead lap anymore. But still in the same position in 7th.
And that's the worst sound to hear, guys. When you're on pit lane, you've stalled. They get the starter in, but not all the way in, and you hear that drive strip in the spline, and then they have to reposition, and that was the difference.
So Bourdais, we talked about, certainly he has the ability to get things done on an oval, and said, hey, I've got a great car today, and then a problem on the pit stop that drops him back. Joseph Newgarden, though, I'm interested to see what he does with those changes. It was a pretty significant turn of the front wing.
Well, the changes so far have paid off. Paul, I know you think Dixon might have a chance. I'm saying if I'm Newgarden, there is no way over my broken clavicle are you going to pass me after I've dominated this race.
Make a dinner bet?
I'll go 3-star Michelin on you tonight with dinner on that. Absolutely.
I'm going to write down these bets. There'll be 1 to go at the line. Simon Pagenaud sits 3rd in the order. Remember, your championship leader. And then behind him, Will Power. He's charging in the championship. Kevin, what do you have from pit lane?
Mike Hull on the box for Scott Dixon. He's been charging. Does he have anything for Pagenaud now with the adjustments you've been making?
I think we need to worry.
Newgarden, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we need to worry a little more about Joseph. He's in another solar system today, honestly, by watching him drive, which he should be. He's a hell of a driver. It's great to have Scott up at the front. We love short track racing. Scott loves this kind of racing, so we'll see what we can get out of this thing today.
Revving him up, about ready to restart.
Mike Hull, one of the most quiet guys out there on the box. Another solar system pretty much describes exactly what Joseph Newgarden has been doing. Look at Pagenaud up on the gearbox of Dixon. He wants to get by him when we go green. Here we go. Dixon with a great run.
And that's the restart I was looking for, T-Pain.
No, this is going to be an expensive dinner. There goes Newgarden, drop the hammer. Same thing happened on the previous restart. If he can get to 3 and 4 in the lead, I think he'll pull away. There he is.
Dixon right there, runs high. Pagenaud stays low, and Newgarden with a good run off the corner. His car seems to have worked anywhere he wants to put it
Wheel
today.
4 the whole way.
I tell you what, I may be reading between the lines, but when you hear Mike Hall say Joseph Newgarden's one hell of a driver, he's a free agent next year, and they got some open spots, it may look like, at Ganassi. Is maybe something going on there.
Listen, you're a free agent all the time in this sport. If the check's big enough, they'll find a way. And Joseph Newgarden deserves a big check after the show he's put on tonight.
Absolutely. Dixon started 10th, now moving his way forward. You see Will Power get around Sebastian Bourdais already. That was not for position, but Power needs to charge forward. Guys in front beginning to check out and pulling away from that group. I'll tell you what, Joseph Newgarden has not pulled the gap that we've seen him pull on previous restarts.
Well, he just clicked off a 17.9. That's almost qualifying pace. As you heard his engineer say, go to wheel 4. That's going to be the most aggressive timing, the most aggressive fuel consumption with that Chevy engine. And I don't think you'll see Newgarden's advantage until they catch the tail end of the pack. Dixon doing everything he can to keep the gap small.
35 to go. Newgarden still in front, and traffic, well, it's a half a lap away, and the gap seems to have remained about the same. Look at the race record there, 131 miles an hour. Where are we right now? 139. That gives you an idea. Obviously, we haven't had many cautions. Also gives you an idea of the torrid pace these guys have been running. There is Tony Kanaan.
Well, that average is up high. We see Kanan's getting a little bit loose there down at the apex. These guys are going to get more desperate now and make more aggressive moves. And so we could get another yellow quite easily, and that would change everything at the end of the race if you pit for tires or not with just a few laps to go.
Watching Hinchcliffe work through the field here. And I think reliability is going to be an issue. Charlie Kimball tries to work the low side on Hinchcliffe. Remember, we've had a couple of failures so far, and with everybody cranked up here at the end, it's going to be putting maximum expectation on these engines. Here,
Kimball slicing and dicing. He's back only one lap down. He makes the move on Hinchcliffe. But Hinchcliffe back on the outside on the high side. They almost touched tires on the exit.
Close at the exit. Meanwhile, Joseph Newgarden just set the fast lap of the day at a 179.4. Just gives you an idea of just how fast these guys are running right now and the pace that is being set. Now Hinchcliffe,
just like I told you, these guys are getting more aggressive with their moves and trying to get by guys. And this is when accidents happen, because you know these 35 laps clicks off fast, and you got to get by guys, and then they end up touching each other.
Well, Jack Hawksworth really desperate for a good result this season. He's right at the back of the championship. Just hasn't had the result deserving of the pace. But how about this guy, Alexander Rossi, rookie year, no oval experience, running 6 on the lead lap, and as loose as he was earlier, Paul. I mean, so confident now.
The best Andretti car by far. You know, we got one. Hunter Ray fell out early. Andretti has been a non-factor, as well as his other teammate Munoz hasn't been a factor all day. So we've seen this guy totally sideways all kinds of times.
Just the idea that he could hold on to it, like you said earlier, was impressive indeed. And yep, he's up in front of that Andretti quartet and up in front of the field. Joseph Newgarden, 2 seconds now over Scott Dixon. Simon Pagenaud trying to hold on to the back of Dixon, but at some point in time, unless there's another caution, does Pagenaud go, I need to just be collecting points?
In about 5 more laps, he's going to catch a whole gaggle of cars. There's about 8 or 9 cars in a pack, about 5 seconds in front of him. So
well, and he's catching a pack of cars that are battling that out for the last 25 laps, and it's going to be harder than ever for Joseph Newgarden to navigate the traffic, and that's going to be the situation Dixon needs, because right now, guys, Dixon cannot hold pace with Newgarden.
Well, and back behind them, what Simon Pagenaud, you see that fluorescent yellow car at the top of the screen. What he does not want to see is the silver of Will Power closing in on him. Go back to the championship implications. Power has had the hot hand, winning the last 2 races. Pagenaud has led this championship pretty much from the beginning, but Power really beginning to close down both on the racetrack and in the points.
Power has closed on Pagenaud 4 times during this race. He's had shots at him, but has never been able to get completely by him. So he keeps pressuring Pagenaud, but has never been able to get by, but he's going to be trying hard.
Just behind them, Mikhail Aloshin is in your shot. He could factor in. Aloshin, the fastest Honda right now in front of Alexander Rossi.
Guys, if Newgarden cruises to a victory here, does the lobbying start for a Texas reconsideration? Because he'd be second in the championship.
I think
DNF
it probably started before they ran, but
I would think there'd be some lobbying between the super teams of Penske and Ganassi to try to sign this kid.
Well, that too.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no way he's going to get a chance to run at Texas. It was the incident.
Hey, boys, remember this. Some of the drivers like Scott Dixon, who are still in the Texas race, they lobbied IndyCar and said, let's just have a whole new race. We don't care that you know, Joseph Newgarden and Connor Daly restart, that'll be just fine. They don't care. And I know a couple owners went to IndyCar and said they didn't want that to happen because they were nervous that Joseph Newgarden was the fastest car at Texas that day.
Well, Scott Dixon's a driver. I promise you, Chip Ganassi, the owner, after tonight's going to say, no way. We're not giving this kid a chance to beat us in the championship.
Yeah, I would imagine there's more lobbying to make sure that he doesn't run than there are that.
He's starting now to catch that group of cars in front of him. There's about 7 or 8 cars all racing each other now, and he's about a second a lap behind him now.
And the hardest one to pass is going to be Alexander Rossi, who's been difficult for others to get by tonight. But Rossi, last car on the lead lap.
And you certainly don't want to become a part of someone else's
Rossi
problem.
up ahead, P6. He's going to race you kind of hard because he's for position there. So
there you go.
Well, he's not for position, but he's for the lead lap.
So now Joseph Newgarden is going to have to work his way through traffic and try to make sure that Scott Dixon doesn't close down, but that gap has stayed just about 2 3/4 seconds over the last several laps.
Rossi getting a run back on Sato as we see Power again still pressuring his teammate. He's been like this most of the race, but hasn't been able to find a way by.
There was that one point in time where he'd gotten along beside him quite a while ago, and Pagenaud able to use traffic and pull back out before the last round of pit stops, but
just doesn't seem to have the exit speed. He's got great entry mid-corner speed, but you see right there the car pushes up, and I think he just loses ground on the exits.
I think Pagenaud knows that Power doesn't like to run low, so if I'm Pagenaud, I'm going to do just that, run mid-track and force Power even higher in the corner. There's lots of ways to drive dirty here, Paul, and the officials told us already there's no way for them to police it.
As we see, Newgarden gets by Rossi with ease, so Rossi didn't give him any trouble there. So.
And now he sets his sights on the next car, Takuma Sato in front of Joseph Newgarden, and Scott Dixon will be left to deal with Alexander Rossi.
I'll tell you what, Dixon is kind of backed up to Pagenaud now, so I don't know if his handling is going away, but he had a bigger lead than that on Pagenaud Power, and he's kind of backing up to them now.
You know, if you can't win this race as Scott Dixon, if you think about it and you look up ahead, you go, well, you know what? I look to a guy like Joseph Newgarden, congratulations to him, and then you go on with your championship as you go from here, and you think about what he's been through. He's a good guy, genuinely liked in the paddock. You don't want to give away race wins, that's for sure, but you got to think a guy like Joseph Newgarden is really one of the future stars of the sport.
We got a good race here. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. They're all within about a second and a half. So
I can only think about what Newgarden must be feeling in the car. He was so concerned about Iowa with the damage to the right clavicle, the right hand, and the high G loading here, but it has just been an incredible drive, and 10 laps to go.
Where did the time go? I mean, this has been, it feels like it's been so short, I'm sure, for Joseph Newgarden. Every time he has to work his way past another lap car, it's kind of a heartbeat that skipped and hold your breath kind of deal, but his 21 Fuzzy's machine has been spectacular all day long. Still 9 to go. Don't give it to him yet as he tries to work his way around Graham Rahal.
He's got to be careful. He can't stick his nose in and get it in there too far and get chopped off. So he's got a nice, comfortable lead now. He's got about the whole back straightaway as a lead. So
he could sit behind Graham Rahal right now and be fine with 8 laps to go, but that's not his style. He's a hard charger. Gonna move on past Graham.
Nice
Smart
job.
decision. Now he's got clean air.
And Townsend, I think you were exactly right earlier. The gap that he had over Dixon grew once they got to traffic.
Power's got a good run here this time. He got a nice run off the corner. He's pulling up in the draft, but he's just not close enough. He goes for that high line, and Pagenaud moves up in front of him.
Ooh. Now what does Pagenaud do? Forces Power. Power doesn't like it low.
Oh, he's got him now. He's going to move up in front of him and watch him get loose.
And keep in mind, that's for the championship. That's championship position. Power now is the highest finisher, or at least in line, of those top 3 in the championship. After the win at Elkhart Lake a couple of weeks ago, Will did let it be known that he wasn't quite up to snuff. He hadn't been feeling well in the offseason, and that had affected his training a little bit. As we watch him challenge now for Dixon, but he told me today, actually, I haven't been feeling it well at all to Detroit. I feel great now, so I think I can still be on the charge. We've got a battle for second.
I'll tell you what, I think he's going to get him, too, because I think Dixon is having trouble with lap traffic. He can't get close to Munoz in front of him, and Powers really closed up on him. High line.
Oh, and he pinches him up.
Whoa!
He's got the momentum. He
learned that from Tony Kanaan 100 laps ago.
If you were passing anybody else but Dixon, that door would have shut and there would have been a crash. Because that is a guy you can trust like Dixon. Because most people wouldn't even know that they were there, and the door would have got shut and there would have been a wreck.
Dixon with that good run forward and now beginning to drop back. 5-second bumper, what the crew telling Joseph Newgarden right now. And 2 to go at the line.
He's got clear track now, no hurry to pass anybody. He's got a couple more lap cars in front, but he can almost just tag onto the back of Chilton's car here and tow an anchor to him and just ride here for the last couple laps.
And this is glorious stuff in the heartland of America. Young American star chasing his first oval win.
Joseph Newgarden has put on a driving clinic here at Iowa today, really all weekend long. A great qualifying effort. You think about what he's come back for, or from, I should say, from Texas. Joseph Newgarden out of turn 4 onto the front straightaway. Joseph Newgarden wins in Iowa.
Good job, Joseph.
3rd career win for Newgarden. First win on an oval.
That was good.
And look at that. Will Power holds on to 2nd. Simon Pagenaud back to 4th, and a great run from Michaela Lotion. Rounds out the top 5.
That was impressive. Wow. Like I said at the start of the show, to be in your 20s again.
Well, you were saying that the other night too.
I know. I mean, with the injury, you know, like you were saying before the race, I went for a run this morning and pulled my calf in 100 yards, and this guy's got a broken collarbone, a broken hand, and just dominated.
Does he feel it at all?
No.
And how about Ed Carpenter Racing? I mean, what a car they gave Joseph Newgarden, and what a job he did to maximize it.
Katie?
And the guy that gave him that great car is Jeremy Millis. Jeremy, you came so close the last 2 years. What did you do different?
We saw the injuries from Texas. There were several of us, myself included, said it was going to be a while before he's back. Then he was back at Road America, and a great job there. And then you look at the performance that he's put on this weekend, absolutely stunning.
I would have thought he was going to be out for at least 2 to 3 races, and it's amazing that he came back at Elkhart and drove as hard as he did, and then to come here and win is amazing. He's a fantastic driver. Look out if this guy ever gets in one of the top cars.
I mean, you can see some of the emotion, some of the fatigue on his face, in his eyes there inside the helmet. You know he's got to be just spent, and I would imagine at this point in time that hand beginning to ache just a little bit, maybe that shoulder aching just a little bit.
I'll bet you when he gets out, he hasn't even got a bead of sweat on him. How much you want to bet?
We could bet dinner, but then we'd have to be down there to inspect things. As Ed Carpenter jumps the wall, go congratulate.
When you have a night like that and everything goes that way, everything's so fluid and just everything flows and goes right. You're not working that hard. So, you know, when you see Hunter Ray get out of his car, he was handling bad. He was spent after the first 100 laps.
In that sign fitting, this is my speedway, and certainly today for Joseph Newgarden, it was his speedway. That show that he put on. You're right, Paul.
Not even a bead of sweat.
Wait a second. I think right up just above the upper lip. No.
He looks as fresh as a daisy to me. He's not even sweating.
When he gets out of this car, I think the fans are going to go crazy. He deserves every bit of applause that he's going to get.
And of course, Joseph's first stop is going to be to high five each of the crew. We know how they performed today. They had that ultra important pit stop. Today, obviously, that pain will go away quickly. Brian?
Yeah, the celebrations continue. What does a winner do? Well, a winner never quits. And when you think about Joseph Newgarden, the crash at Texas, when would he be back? The next race at Road America. Where would he finish? 8th. And then just one race later, Joseph Newgarden is a winner. You're watching. Let's head back to more celebrations down in Victory Lane with Kevin.
When Will Power, we need to keep doing that. And let's look at the final 2 positions you picked up in the final laps.
you had to predict where these guys went. They'd go where you were the lap before, so it was like playing chess, you know. I mean, and Dixon, he took the line, I took the lap before, and got him on the outside. But
best result this season on a short oval?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's already a progress compared to where I finished here in 2014, because in 2014 I finished in the wall. So
you never know. You see Joseph Newgarden come to the pit lane. He goes past his team owner, Ed Carpenter, gives him the big fist pump. He's led 282 of 300 laps. Congratulations, Joseph Newgarden. Coming August 5th to the networks of NBC Universal. Iowa Corn 300. This is a fair distance from Rio. I don't think it looks anything like this, but great competition here today, and Joseph Newgarden is the one who's so impressed, certainly earned his gold medal here. Alexander Rossi, Indy 500 champion, had a reasonable run here as well on the short oval.
Well, I'd say just took off on me, and immediately I realized it was my issue. So, you know, a huge apology to him, and I've already talked to him after the race, and we're good. But it definitely wasn't nice for him.
So you did speak?
Oh yeah, we're good.
He didn't go after you?
Everybody else, I guess we just can't quite figure it out. So from there, we lost almost half a second from final practice, which really we can't explain because we added like 50 pounds of downforce or something. But we lost a ton of pace, and then we clogged up the front wing at the end in the little gills there, and on top of that, I stole the car in the last pit stop. So not a good day. Not a good day for me.
Not a good day, but not a terrible day. Still equals his second best finish of the season of 8 for Sebastian Bourdais. He heads to Toronto, where he is strong. Coming up next, Katie.
All right, you heard earlier.
My problems today, but yeah, I mean, if you look, I gave him room, didn't even block. We went side by side.
He did say he washed up on you in his defense.
Yeah, I mean, here we go. A left front tire. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. If you can see, I mean, I'm behind Pagano. I get out of the corner. Boom, no power. No power. Willpower passes me, and then it came back. So, and then
things going on, and that's the way it was all day long. But for Joseph Newgarden, he walks away with the win. We'll be back for our race recap. Stay with us. The Iowa Corn 300, and interesting to see that the trophy is about the same color, I think, of Joseph Newgarden's car. At least it was when it was at Texas. It was that bright green color, but Newgarden still doing interviews. Let's go back to the very beginning, take you back to the drop of the green. And Paul Tracy, you watched practice yesterday, and you said, I know what he's going to do at the start.
I knew he was going to want to make that move early, and he made it on the first corner, ran the high line, swept around the outside, and never looked back. He led green to checker.
Pretty impressive stuff. Led 94% of the laps. By lap 83, he's lapping third place.
Yeah, it's the way to do it on a short oval. Joseph Newgarden, again in a class of his own, and Kanan said it was like we were all in Indy Lights and he was in IndyCar, but then this happened on 109.
Yeah, Ryan Hunter-Reay's weekend went from bad to worse. Massive, massive engine expiration coming out of 2. That was the Honda engine.
Only be fair if Chevy had one too, and this was Montoya. Things going south for him.
Not as spectacular. Not as spectacular as the Honda, but out of the race for him.
Max Chilton had a great qualifying effort, but then problem in the race.
Yeah, he got in some traffic, got up tight on some guys, got loose, and it spun coming off of 2 and slid all the way down the back straight, flattened the tires.
Will Power is not out of this championship, and he drove like a man possessed over the last couple of laps.
This was a bold move, but only possible with the trust of Scott Dixon to know how to stay low and give him the space to pass for second there.
But in the end, the big fist pump, 282 of 300 laps led.
The championship is heated up, and so has the silly season. Now there's speculation that everybody will want to be after this guy if he is a free agent next year.
Will Power up to second place. He's won the last 2 in a row, and then second here at Iowa. He's on a charge.
Yeah. Scott Dixon with a solid run. Pagano A great run for him on a short oval. They really figured things out from last year with the 22. Mikhail Aloshin rounding out the top 5, and those 5 cars, the only cars on the lead lap.
Tony Kanaan, we saw him drop back, but look at the second page. Notable names.
Castro Neves 2 times caught in the pits when it went yellow. That really hurt his night because he had a fast car and was up front the whole time.
We talk about the championship. Well, there's the way the points are right now. Everybody closing down on Simon Pagenaud a little bit. Interesting, 7/8 of a mile here at Iowa. We came from a 4-mile road course, and now we're going to Toronto.
And Toronto should be terrific. It's always crazy there, Paul. Every year there's all kinds of drama. All I can think about, though, is how do we get Newgarden in that Texas race? I'm ready to appeal.
Yeah, and different layout a little bit this year at Toronto. They've made some changes. Pit lane is on the opposite side of the track. The last couple corners have changed, so that's going to change the setups for everybody. So it could be a whole new situation for these teams.
And once again, it just shows the diversity of the Verizon IndyCar Series. The fans, the drivers, the racetracks, that's what makes this series so special. And don't forget that coming up on NBCSN next, the Tour de France Stage 9. Be sure to join us next Sunday at 2:30 Eastern for the Toronto Grand Prix on CNBC. For more information on the Verizon IndyCar Series, log on to NBCSports.com. Congratulations to today's winner, Joseph Newgarden from Iowa.